Dr. Dwight Roblyer, who will be our speaker today. So let's get started. Dr. Dwight Roblyer is a senior lecturer in the Department of Political Science and has taught over 20,000 young Aggies since 2013. He works for their success and preparing them to contribute to their future professions and communities. As an Aggie undergrad, Dr. Roblyer also was a president's endorsed scholar and in the Corps of Cadets. He studied physics and psychology, graduating cum laude and commissioning into the U.S. Air Force. He served for 26 years in various assignments, including satellite operations, political, military wargaming, and more time back at MU to earn his PhD in international relations. Inside and outside the classroom, Dr. Roblyer also focuses on his students and works to leverage his non-traditional background to enable them to embrace and the tremendous potential to their college level learning opportunities. He has also received various awards, such as the University Distinguished Achievement Award for teaching from the former Student Association, from the Provost Academic Professional Track Faculty Teaching Excellence Award, the University Honors Directors Award, the Partners in Learning Award of Excellence for Accountability, Climate, and Equity, and the Residence Life Honoring Excellence Award. Today we will hear from him, from Dr. Roblyer, his experience working with generative AI in the classroom. Dr. Roblyer, the floor is yours.
Well, Justin, we might as well get on a first name basis. I'm Dwight.
Dwight, good to meet you.
Where do you work, Justin?
I'm in the history department. This is my first semester at TAMU.
Oh, okay. Where'd you come from?
I was at Texas State for 4 years before that.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Well, historians are some of my favorite folks. So I tell you what, going and getting the PhD in political science just hammered how little I know about history and how much more I need to know. So I'm listening to audio book on the history of ARPA, Advanced Research and Project Association, and I had agency, and I had no idea. I mean, it's now DARPA. I've worked with DARPA doing satellite stuff, but I had no idea about their dark history in Vietnam, and oh my goodness, nuclear testing, everything else. So, what's your area of expertise in history
I
or
yeah,
area of interest?
I study the post-Civil War South, and
Okay.
I'm writing a book on the history of policing and freedom struggles in the rural South. So
Oh man, that is so cool. Yeah, you should see some of the posters I have. I have the Freedom March up here and some other stuff that are important. I got a uh, Vietnam War protest and women's suffrage and some all kinds of old black and white stuff here to remind me that all of this is in context. So, well, that's good. So, yeah, um, hopefully we'll be able to have some conversation here because uh, I've learned some things, and it's not just from in the classroom for me, Justin. It's also because I'm on the honor council. So I've been there for 8 years now, and we saw a big bump in our business when when uh, GroupMe came out, and then another bump when when the AI bots hit, and so. Uh, as you'll sort of see, my core concern ends up being that not so much about how fancy we can get it and how we use this, but the care that we need to take to make sure that we are not losing essential parts of our humanity. And so I do reading along those lines. I have some friends, and we send articles back and forth when we see stuff, and and I've actually taken a little foray into trying to integrate it into my course in some way. It didn't work very well. So let me just sort of share a little bit about what's going on there. So Armando already sort of gave you my background here. Lots of uh, lots of stuff in my background, very non-traditional academic, which I try and use to my students' advantage. And so that's uh, what I got here is sort of 5 points that I want to talk about, because this idea that, it's everywhere, and that's sort of where we start off with counting is, it's not just, well, I was helping out with a merit badge university here at the university a couple of months ago, and it was like citizenship in the nation or something like that. I don't remember what it was. And one of the requirements was that the kiddos had to go on to Google or go onto a search engine and look up a news article about something or another. And these were primarily middle schoolers, and so they would look up something and they'd read it out, and I'd say, "That's great. Where did you get it from?" And they go, "Google." And I go, "No, no, no. You used Google. What's the source that's cited?" "No, it's Google." And they're just looking at the AI summary at the top, right? So we're already losing that connection that knowledge comes from somewhere. And that somewhere has to matter so that we can try and decide how we're going to value that knowledge. And that was not a fun sort of little exercise. I just was sort of smacking my head. Not their fault at all, but it's the natural thing to do as humans. We often will just take the easiest route, easiest route out, and I think that often is going to run us into trouble. So, you know, for those of us that use digital textbooks, the publishers are running as fast as they can to try and get AI incorporated into that. Uh, Same thing with learning management systems. I've read a little bit about that. So far, it seems to be mainly on the instructor side, but I figure that's not going to last for very long. There's going to be stuff that's going to be coming in on the student side as well, which it doesn't necessarily have to be bad, but it depends upon how it's done and what the purposes are for it and how. Well, anyway, we'll get there and talk about it. You know, one of the things I talked about a year ago, Justin, was trying to tell my students, make it clear to them what was authorized and what wasn't, because you may not realize this here at A&M yet. Student Rule 20 is your friend. That's some fine print for your your contract here at A&M that you really need to dig into, because that's our Aggie honor system. And under those rules, students are required to follow whatever the professor provides, instructor provides, as far as what is authorized and not authorized for an assignment or in a course. And that can vary widely from, course to course and professor to professor. And so, it's on them to sort of keep track of all that. So just because it's okay to use ChatGPT in one course doesn't mean that it's okay to use it in another course. And so, I was building these matrices and stuff to sort of make it easier for the students to see what was okay and when, not just with AI, but when could you use the internet, and what is it that you could use it for? Like, I never want you to use the internet to go up and look up an answer to any of my things. So, Chegg and of course, or Study Blue, and there's a bunch of websites out there that sort of masquerade as tutoring websites when really they're there to just solve the problem for the student. And so that's all there, and then now what do you do now that AI is in Google and in Microsoft, and a lot of the stuff that students are reading in the news is not generated by a person, it's generated by a bot. And it's really everywhere, much faster than I think any of us ever would have thought. 2 years ago, when this first hit, I remember somebody, some of the techie folks saying, "Yeah, this is going to be in 5 years. This is going to be like the Stone Age." All the stuff that we were just, oohing and awing at, and certainly that's the direction things have been going very, very quickly. And it is no small thing to me that a lot of the really good experts were trying to get the corporate leaders, to slow down on this because of concern about getting out ahead of us culturally and ethically, and that money ruled the day, and those voices of wisdom were not listened to. So uh, the day of being able to use AI detectors with some degree of confidence is gone. But that doesn't mean the AI cannot be detected. And so it's not going to be automatic. I do use a product called Packback. If you ever heard of it before? No, no. So the uh, it's a uh, it's a discussion board product, but one where they use AI to moderate it. They have humans that come in after something gets flagged, but because I run, 600 students in a section, if I want them to have any sort of critical thinking or writing practice at all in my course, which is otherwise all discrete answer kinds of assignments, then that this is what I found to be useful. And it's not just a discussion board for where I post the question. That's not the way it's actually designed to work. The way it's designed to work is the students ask the questions, as well as as well as provide responses to each other's questions. So it's a wonderful product, but they still maintain that their AI detector is 98% correct. And I found it just in the that was true a year and a half ago. But within the last 6 months, it's 98% wrong. And, they put a lot of money and effort into engineering that thing. And I think the time of the automatic detector is gone. That era is really in the past. However, we can sort of work on finding ways for ourselves to sort of uh, think about using ourselves as AI detectors. One of the biggest things is writing style. If I was teaching a writing based course, one of the first things I'd have my students do in class is give them a piece of paper, maybe some color that I choose, and say, okay, I want you to tell me about, the most important thing that's happened to you in your life, or something that gives you an opportunity to capture a writing sample from them, so that it's in sort of a pristine, sort of a clean room kind of environment. You're not asking them to bring something in. You're not asking them to send something in, and and then collect those, and then just hang on to them, just in the case of need. Because one of the things that's been the most illuminating for some AI cases that we've had in the Honor Council is when uh, the faculty member has had another sample of their writing, and to see usually the disparities between the two. You have something that was turned in with a very accomplished sort of writing voice in it versus something that where people are really struggling to sort of put sentences together. It's really can be quite striking. And so that's something that's really important and can be very helpful, I think. Also, one of the things that's been in the articles for a while, for about 6 months or so, is this idea that GPT, when it's writing, tends to reuse words quite often that are not very common. And so, like the word Dell was the really famous one just a few months ago. And however, I'll tell you that last semester I had some packback posts that were flagged by the packback AI detector, and I went and looked at them. And I also had the student, give me the rest of the posts that they'd made, as well as a separate writing sample from another course. This student, I could tell from just the way that they spoke, they were a very accomplished writer. They were really quite good, and I ended up having no doubt whatsoever that the student had written this. And they were using fancy words, right? But they knew how to use them, and they also incorporated them into their speech. So it was really not that difficult to sort of end up figuring that out. So, but it is very interesting that the voice of a GPT can be different. Of course, there's issues about content. You may have heard that. Often it's sort of banal. And in fact, I read something last night that said, uh, assignments done completely by an AI bot is the new definition of a grade of C. You know, but I've also seen students who know how to engineer those prompts, and maybe not the first prompt, it may be the 10th prompt, and so there are students out there that can really use these bots really, really well. So, so a second part of detecting, this is an article that I read earlier this summer, and this is a person who teaches strategic writing, I think at the high school level or community college level, if I recall correctly. And she had a really interesting idea, or not idea, something, a technique that she used, which is something that she thought was probably written by AI. She would feed it back into AI and tell it to rewrite it. And when it did, since it had already been written by AI, very few things would change, mainly just synonyms would be swapped out. So I never heard that before. I shipped that off to our Aggie Honor System office for them to add to their file because that just seems really cool. Also, the prompt, the wording from the prompt in her experience seems to be featured broadly, as she calls it, in the paper. I think that's also just can be a really good technique for somebody who's a good writer. But once again, if you have another sample of writing, then that can sort of help. Uh, so I thought that was interesting. Protecting students. I think we really need to uh, make sure we are coaching our students in this new era of how to protect themselves against future accusations of use of AI. And so one of the things that, Student Rule 20 there talks about the requirement for students to have to authenticate their own work and how absence of evidence that a student can provide can be grounds for a charge of academic integrity violation, uh, academic misconduct. And so that's, the onus is placed on the student. And so because of that, I think it's important for us to sort of prepare them for that and equip them and give them the opportunity to be able to practice that. So I've already told you, I don't teach writing courses, but I do 485s with seniors, and I do honors projects with honor students. And both of those involve writing. And my direction to them now is choose your poison, Google or Microsoft. If it's Google, Google Docs is automatically going to keep a version history. If it's Microsoft, you need to make sure you're saving to your OneDrive so that it maintains a version history there. And then you use that document for anything that has anything to do with the development of your project or your paper. So from taking notes to building your outline to making your draft, it can be long and it can be messy, and you'll eventually separate something out for your final. But this development doc is your footprint. It is the footsteps, it is the evidence that you need to be able to potentially authenticate your work. And so that's something that several of us are starting to do, and I think it's important not just for college. Think about what this is going to be like in the professional world as well, and so and not just for academics. So yeah, so deciding, and this is where it gets into my concerns about sort of where this is taking us, where it may have already taken us, and how much further down that road we're going to go. So this is from an author who, is big in the tech area, and you can see from the title, intellectual atrophy. It's this concern about that we're going to become less human, less able to do the important human things that we depend on ourselves and other humans to do. So he lists off critical thinking, common sense, intuition, experience. Oops, and I got that that URL got stuck in there as well as down at the bottom. Oh well. And so those kinds of things are all important. Uh, and so he says growing these kinds of abilities require intention, focus, and attention span. Oh well, you can tell me I was typing fast here. Double in. And so and he says that's exactly what these kinds of tools take away from us. They remove that we shift the intention to letting the bot do the work. That allows us to put our focus and our attention somewhere else, which, if we're not teaching critical thinking, common sense, intuition, and experience, then, what is it that we're really teaching here? Because those are ultimately the things that we want our students to be equipped with. Okay, and then another article. This one came out of the Atlantic. And it was a very interesting article because he made sort of a philosophical argument. But one of them, he sort of started back with this idea of the creation of certified doctors and medical professionals instead of just having local healers. And so he puts that quote in there: modern professions inculcate the belief not only that their credentialed representatives can solve your problems for you, but also that you are incapable of solving said problems for yourself. which certainly is true for a lot of advanced stuff, but do we really have to go and consult professions as often as we do if we just had some more information? For example, medical healthcare in my family, my wife is a nurse and a nurse practitioner, and so we are all schooled from a very early age on just the basic things of care and why you do what you do. And it's not just a matter of, okay, go ask mom and see what it is that we're supposed to do. We've been taught. I don't think it was this article, but it may have been, or it may have been another one that I couldn't find. But they said one of the things we're losing in modern society today, not just because of AI, but we've been losing it for a while, is this idea of training up apprentices and journeymen. This idea of learning a skill, not because it's given to you, but the process of learning is tremendously valuable, right? It's tremendously valuable to defining who we are and giving us skills that we don't even necessarily name, but that are just necessary in order to be able to pick up something that is difficult and that you have to practice over time and you have to continue to refine and you have to continue to go back to the teacher to sort of say, okay, I think I've got this much, but now I'm having trouble with this. What's that next step? How is it that I do that? And that particular article was bemoaning the fact that AI could potentially serve that kind of a purpose. If instead of just getting the answer, we could go back and say, okay, now please take me step by step through this. Now, I did just read about the strawberry product that's coming out of OpenAI, and supposedly it's able to solve like very difficult math problems step by step. So maybe it would have the ability then to walk you back through that, but that doesn't mean that people would be trained to ask that question, right? They'd be happy to just take the answer and run with it. And so I think maybe the bottom line of all of this is that we really want to be teaching our students to be lifetime learners, and that's got to be a lot more than just learning how to use AI, right? It's got to get something. So this article asked that question about, is AI extending our abilities or replacing them? One of the things that talked about is the broom and the vacuum. They said, is AI the vacuum that has replaced the broom, which therefore now we are not nearly as manually dexterous with a broom as our grandmas and grandpas were, right? And I certainly see that with my kids. I'm much better with a broom than my kids will probably ever be, because my dad was a woodshop teacher and I used to broom a lot. And he taught me, the specific ways that he wanted that broom used. So, or is it something else? Uh, uh, is it taking something that's vital away from us? This article made the point. They said freedom to do something is wonderful, but it's completely meaningless if we no longer have the ability to do it, such as to think critically, right? So, uh, and then that bottom one, what makes many applications of artificial intelligence so disturbing is that they don't expand our mind's capacity to think, but outsource it. I'm very, very concerned about all of that. So what am I doing in my class? Well, I've already told you there's really not much use I mean, I don't have room for writing. I told my students if I had a single open response test question on the first exam, they wouldn't get it back until the end of the course. And with so many of them. So everything is discrete answer. And if it can't be discrete answer, some of the things that the university requires for people with core courses, for example, has to be open response. That just means I can't score it. I just have to give them participation point. Hey, you did it, and we move on. So ultimately, I sort of see AI in my course as being the square peg in the round hole, and I, I, I tried something which maybe in the future will work. So this idea of creating a custom bot that I then feed my material into, and then students can use that to create, practice problems or have it, quiz them or to tutor them on certain things. The problem with the custom bot thing is that right now the university only has the license for Copilot, and the license does not include their custom bot function. So you can go and do a custom bot with a paid, chat GPT or something, but then your students have to pay for that same level in order to be able to access it. I have played around a little bit with just the normal Copilot and say, okay, I take like a lecture and I use the Word version of it that, you can click over there and get sort of the outline version of the slides. And I upload that. In fact, now these things can even read PowerPoint slides. So I just upload that and then say, okay, respond to this question using all of the material that I just uploaded. And it works about 3 out of 5 times. So it really doesn't understand or want to comply with one of the two, those kinds of things. So far, I'm not batting real great on finding a way to sort of enable my students to be able to use AI in my course in a way that I find to be helpful for them. And uh, but I have seen some really interesting things on the honor council. We had a professor come through. She wasn't even an English professor, but it was something else. And she had them do a project, and she told them they had to use AI. So, but she needed a long document from them that included, and she had a step-by-step recipe. Okay, decide what it is that you want to do. Okay, now create a prompt. Put the prompt here. Now put that into your bot. Now put the response here. Now I want you to analyze that response. What are the positive things? What are the negative things that came out of this? What do you think needs to change? What did you leave out? Right now, re-engineer the prompt or write a new prompt in order to be able to address those. Put the prompt down, put the output down. And so literally stepping them through this critical thinking process using AI. And that sounds wonderful. But that teacher had a class of 35 students. And so, those are the kinds of things you'll be able to learn in her class, but not in mine. And so, uh, but yeah, I'm always thinking about this kind of stuff, and I'm really open to talking about this in a lot of different ways.